why everyone's so like jazzed about this thing is that there's people who bought Curve early on. They staked it for 4 years, 2 years, 3 years, depending on how they locked it up for the Curve token, and they're voting. They're voting bribes, which is basically something like this. So this is the best explanation of what bribes are. Is beats bribes. So for every 1,000 F beats, which is 1,000 F beats, which isn't that much money, you get these kind of incentives. The websites for Curve are way nicer. These are pretty fucking janky. This is pretty janky, you guys. This is pretty Microsoft, early Microsoft Paint shit. But basically, this is what it is, right? So if let's just say I had 100,000 F beats, which is right now probably like $80,000, maybe $100,000, you would basically make $3,000, $3,600 every 2 weeks. So basically, you're earning about 3.5 to 4% a week on like $100,000. You could have less amount, but it's still the percentage is equaled up the same. Where depending on where you vote, and sometimes it's actually higher because they pay out a certain percentage, but then not enough people vote on there. So there's a bit of a strategy for how to like get your money out. So with all these incentives, this causes people to like hold beats for longer, Curve for longer. I was like, wow, Curve's cool, beats is cool. I hold beats, and it ends up having more people like, wow, this coin's really good. Let me keep it for a long time. And then it because of that causes the overall price of beats to kind of go up or stay steady. And then those emissions start getting paid out to people in pools, and then these pools, which let me go to the pool, which these pools on Beethoven X, just to give you an example, getting missions, right? So something like what's a decent one? Like Vaults of the Mold of the Lonely Mountain receives a 283% beats APR reward, which is emissions basically, as well as like their own incentives token and swap fees. And this gives you an overall APR of 351%, which is almost 1% a day in terms of yield, which is pretty good. So what's going on here is that the reason that these projects pay these bribes is because it's a way for them to get liquidity for their token. So because what's going on is almost no one other than the team itself is going to provide liquidity for tokens. So if you as a team don't incentivize pools, and then you also don't have much capital to incentive, I mean, basically you die as a project because you don't have enough liquidity at all, and people don't fuck with you. And then if people can't buy like $100,000 or $10,000-$15,000 at a time, and they're like, man, fuck this janky ass piece of shit, and then they don't use you, and then you die basically. So it's super important to actually have to incentivize pools. And then this is what Beethoven X does really well. And they borrowed this whole bribe system from Curve. And there's people that I know of, that like they have like a couple $100,000 in Curve tokens locked up that they got when it was peanuts basically, and then they were able to get missions on it. So I mean that $400,000 of Curve tokens back in the day was really like it cost them like $15,000, and those $15,000 are now after all this time are still providing let's just say on a $300,000 Curve. I'm just using these large numbers to make you guys understand in terms of why like people give a fuck so much about like Curve. But like 300, 400, $500,000 of Curve tokens that are locked up, and they're using these bribes. People are living on this stuff where they're essentially generating a $4,000 to $8,000 income on every bribe vote and stuff. So it's a very sizable income for a lot of people on Ethereum and stuff. So a lot of I know of quite a few people that are living off of like bribes basically. And this is starting to kind of play out a little bit for Beethoven X. Is one of the reasons why I saw the incentive pools. So this is before they really had the bribes going on. And I was like, holy crap, this is pretty amazing. The APRs are nice. And then I was like, the bribe system, oh my god. So I then, obviously I was already invested. I saw the smoke. I invested pretty decently into this, and I actually do think this is a long term good play. But there's a lot more competition now, where you are getting this whole thing with like Liquid Driver doing bribes, but basically everyone's doing bribes right now, which does lead to like increased price appreciation on tokens and stuff like that. Because if you provide a decent amount of bribes, people want to buy your token more, and then it's sort of this thing where like the winner gets more money, and because they get more money, it gets more buying pressure. So on something like if you look at something like what's a decent one? Okay, like this one, right? Like ring this, right? So it's an 80-20 pool. So you're it's the least amount of impermanent loss you can do by providing liquidity. But what ends up happening is people are like, wow, that APR is really good. So people start buying your token for no reason, just to essentially earn this yield. And this causes your price to go up and also makes you more liquid. And it's just basically a positive feedback loop. And it causes price appreciation as well as like steady eddy on the price in terms of some whales are able to kind of offload money without collapsing the price. And that's kind of what's going on in terms of everything right here, in terms of like curve and that. So just to go back to the original point, so everyone and their mom is like, holy crap. So Andre essentially made in a more advanced version. So he added a couple of different dimensions to the curve token, the CRV token, when he made solidly, which is the solid token basically. And one of the big things that he did as an upgrade to this whole protocol is he has something called create a lock, basically. So you can take your solid token. This is like locking CRV for like a couple of years, and but the one of the big differences that he did was you lock it up and then you lock it up and that's it, right? And you have voting power. But what he did is he made the lockup token into an NFT, which is tradable. That's what's so cool about this whole thing is that Andre essentially allowed liquidity for like locked stakes in a way on a NFT marketplace. So right now you can buy and sell your voting power in solidly, which is Curve on Phantom, on PaintSwap, which is really, really cool. So I know this is a little bit complex for some people who don't know the systems and stuff like that, but intentionally they've made it pretty complex. If you actually read the white papers for some of these tokens, it's pretty fucking dog shit. Like literally like vague as fuck. Like, hey, I'm launching something VV33, and then they call it solidly, and then like it could have been rolled out a lot better, honestly. And I actually personally think that it was intentionally people in crypto always lean into like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm so hyper intelligent, and like my spurginess stopped me from really properly explaining this. Is because of the genius of my body just could not get me to write words on the thing to explain this properly to everybody. But I did it because I'm a good smart person, not because I have a fucking like backwards incentive to make sure that like my homies get rich, like get rich as fuck off of this shit first before all the plebs get in, which is what I think personally is what happened a little bit, right? So it basically, unless you were really a fucking Ethereum dork in Curve and stuff, because most people like Curve token fucking doesn't do shit really in terms of price appreciation.